Welcome back to the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, and we're finally back with Mark O'Hare and Adrian Clarke. Adrian, I'll start with you. It seems it's been ages. I think it's three weeks nearly since we've had a football podcast between the international break, the FA Cup. Are you refreshed for the final couple of months of the season?
I think we kind of need it because we've got a busy few weeks coming, haven't we? So yeah, I guess so. I'm down in Cornwall at the moment with the family, so I wouldn't say I'm completely refreshed being down here playing with the little ones, but it's been really good fun. So yeah, there's a sea view behind, but you can't see it, I don't think. So yeah, it's all good. But I'm ready. I'm massively ready now for the Premier League's return because this is where it starts to get really interesting, isn't it?
It does, and it's a massive, particularly Super Sunday. Mark O'Hare, international breaks in general, you like taking the foot off the pedal, so I presume this time around was the exact same.
Yeah, well, I think you need a rest and a refresh every now and again. It's been a really long period. It always is every year between the November international break and the March international break. And when you're doing it sort of day in, day out, it is quite exhausting and tiring after a while. And I do find myself towards kind of the end of mid-March kind of thinking I'm sick of football at the minute. I just need a bit of a breather. And so, but yeah, had a nice sort of time away and now back and ready to go for the business end of the campaign. And then we've got a busy summer ahead too. But yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, massive summer ahead of us. Yeah, so it's going to be a long few months, but we're very much looking forward to bringing you all that on the Matchbook Football Podcast. Do check out the Matchbook Betting Exchange. Invariably, you'll be getting best price on a lot of these selections that we mentioned per the odds checker grid. Like and subscribe to us on YouTube. And very important, timings are available for each game in the description. So if you do want to skip ahead, catch Manchester City versus Arsenal. We tend to go in race card order, so that'll be the final game we cover of the four marquee games, along with EFL, European bets, long shots, and best bets. And final push, if you are a UK customer, you can, of course, use the Bet Builder product on the Matchbook Betting Exchange, the only exchange in the UK, and Ireland currently offering that service. So do check that out. We'll start the four games: Villa, Wolves, Brentford, Manchester United, Liverpool versus Brighton, and Manchester City versus Arsenal. So we'll start with Saturday Night Football, 5:30 kickoff. Aston Villa 1.68 favourites to Wolves 5.2. Disappointing FA Cup result for them last time out. The draw is 4.6. Both teams to score, yes, heavily favoured at 165. The Asian handicap line sees Wolves get a 3/4 goal head start at 2.08, and the goal line here 3.5, but unders very much favoured at 163. So look, Mark, take it away. It was a massive disappointment for Gary O'Neill and Wolves in that FA Cup game I alluded to there, and a bit of the fallout there with the ball boy and a lot of stuff on afterwards. But I guess Wolves will really be looking to finish the season strong up against a Villa team who starting to, they're still getting the results, but they're starting to maybe come back to the pack a small bit.
Yeah, interesting game this. Wolves have been going great guns since Christmas in the Premier League. I think only the runaway top three have picked up more points since Christmas than Wolves, who've won 7 of their last 11. They do have a very solid record in this rivalry or this West Midlands derby, whatever you want to call it, against Villa too. So they'll be eager to put on a show and bounce back from that FA Cup defeat and disappointment. I always do like Wolves as big underdogs, and we tend to see, I think we tend to see Gary O'Neill and his team at their best when they're I just find them easier to read, probably easier to trust in this kind of environment, really, than when they oppose or hosting a relegation scrapper, shall we say. I've seen them cough and splutter a bit when expectations are high against Burnley and Luton and Sheffield United, but I think when they're sort of written off as underdogs against the big boys, they can tend to surprise. It is worth pointing out coming into this weekend that injuries have bitten them quite badly in recent weeks. Top scorer Hwang is still out. Pedro Neto could be out for the season, which is an enormous blow. But Cunha is due back this weekend, possibly not from the start, but they've had this match penciled in for a potential return. Craig Dawson also due back as well. And I just think the presence of Dawson and Cunha in the squad will give them a bit of a lift after that debacle against Coventry. But I think even without those kind of key players, I just think the odds are slightly undervaluing Wolves' ability to make life tough for opposition sides in these kind of environments. And you mentioned the handicap there at 3/4. Well, you can actually back Wolves +1 at around about sort of 180, which is a handicap where they've lost. They've only lost by multiple goals 5 times in the Premier League under Gary O'Neill this season in 28 outings, just twice away from Molineux as well. So if you look at their record against the top 6, they've played 8 games against the division's best, only once lost by a margin of 2 goals or more. And the fact they're facing a Villa side who have been struggling for clean sheets especially at Villa Park. Just 2 home clean sheets since August in the Premier League for Villa. Plus the fact that their Villa Park record has kind of gone up in smoke in recent months. They've lost 3 of the last 4 at home. They're still missing 2 very key, important cogs themselves in midfield, McGinn and Kamara. And it just feels to me recently that Emery's been reaching a little bit for answers and trying to sort of turn their form around. Against Luton, he started Tielemans in an advanced role. That didn't really work. Against Spurs, he went with a 3 at the back system. Lost all control in the midfield, and Spurs tended to dominate that area. And then before the break, he started Duran for the first time in the league alongside Watkins, the first time they'd gone 2 up top all season. Again, it didn't really work until he made those changes at half-time because there was no service for the players in forward areas. So, I think Villa are gettable. So happy to have Wolves on side at these kind of lines and prices, despite those key forwards missing. I still think they're stubborn enough to frustrate and to avoid a heavy defeat. So, I think when I came into this game originally, I thought Wolves missing those 3 players, or at least 2 of them, is a huge blow and potentially an opportunity to oppose them. But the prices and the lines have already gone way in Villa's favour here, and I just think possibly a bit too much. So, happy to be Wolves +1 here. Villa need to win by 2 goals or more for the bet to lose.
Okay, yeah, that's currently available at 182 on the Match for Betting Exchange. Adrian, you're in broad agreement here. So, look, on the Villa side of things, Unai Emery, and we've talked about this in the podcast, he sort of preps his team for each individual game, which has its advantages, but maybe, as we've seen in recent weeks, does leave them sort of vulnerable if that plan doesn't work, obviously.
Yeah, look, I'm just thinking along the same lines really as Mark on all fronts. I think that Wolves are a little bit under-respected in terms of the price here. Villa slightly overrated, obviously great league position, but that home form is a worry. With those defeats, 3 in the last 4, 14 goals they've conceded in their last 6 home games. That's since their win streak ended. You remember they had that long winning streak at Villa Park, and I think they've conceded 11 in their last 4 as well. So an alarming amount of goals being offered up to the opposition. And Wolves are always worth the goal, even without the likes of Hwang and Neto. They find ways to score goals. I've been so impressed with Wolves, considering the injury problems they've had. For them to still be sort of, mixing it with the top half, I think is a credit to the manager. Look, they've scored in 10 of 14 away games, Wolves, this season. So they're used to going, away from Molineux and troubling the scorers. As Mark said, they very, very rarely lose by 2 goals or more, particularly on the road. So I think they can absolutely be competitive here. I see them as Villa really being a style match similar to Tottenham in regards to the style of football that they're going to encounter, the high line, the press, etc. And look, Wolves did the double over Tottenham Hotspur, 2-1 home and away. So I think that they might like it. They've got a little bit of pace up front, Wolves, where they can hurt the home side. And they've got a brilliant record at Villa Park. I know that not everyone likes to take into account historical sort of form, but look, there's 6 unbeaten against Aston Villa Wolves. Remember, this is a Midlands derby. And in the Premier League at Villa Park, the last 7 meetings, 3 wins for Wolves and 4 draws. No Villa win at home to Wolves in the Premier League since 2003. So they're a little bit of a bogey team as well. So yeah, with Cunha returning, Dawson too, maybe Bellegarde, I think that Wolves can potentially draw the game, maybe win it, and at worst get beaten by a single goal. Because I just don't think that Villa without McGinn and Kamara are anywhere near the same as they were earlier on in the season. So yeah, I'm happy to oppose the home side here. Wolves +1 at 1.8.
Okay, yeah, broad agreement from the guys, so we can lock that in as an official bet there. Despite Wolves' injuries, we were thinking they can make it a competitive game at Villa Park. We'll go to Saturday, 8 p.m. kickoff here. It's Brentford versus Manchester United. Take a look at the betting. Currently available on the Match for Betting Exchange, and if we're betting to an over round, incidentally, at 100.04% on the match odds here. Brentford 3.15, Manchester United 2.3. The draw is available at 3.95. Both teams to score, yes. Heavily favoured at 153. The Asian handicap line sees Brentford get a quarter goal head start at around 195. The goal line here is 3.5. The unders around 163. So Adrian, stick with you on this one. And Manchester United, not just this season, but for a few years, we've tended to be against them on the podcast. So a little bit surprised that I know they've had a good form recently. Big win against Liverpool before the international break. But you fancy them to get a result here?
Yeah, it's more of an anti-Brentford selection, really. Look, Manchester United, they aren't all bad. We've been very critical of them, but they're still capable of winning a lot of matches in the Premier League, and they still do win a lot of matches in the Premier League. But Brentford haven't been doing a lot of winning of late, have they? I mean, it's been a rotten run. I was looking at it since December the 3rd. Brentford's record is 1-2, drawn 1, lost 12. This is a team that's sort of sleepwalking its way into a relegation battle. But for these points deductions, they'd be there or thereabouts, really. So, there's a big concern there. They've got so many injuries to key players as well. Ben Mee's out for the season. Rico Henry's been out the whole season anyway. I think that Pinnock, Norgard, and Reguilón suspended. Pinnock and Norgard are big doubts for this one as well. So a lot of their best players are missing, and they're in rotten form. And you look at them at home, okay, G-Tech Community Stadium, you think of it being a tough place to go. Well, it hasn't been. They've conceded at least 2 goals in 10 of 14 home league matches this season. It's remarkable. 1 home clean sheet in the entire campaign. So I can't get on side with Brentford at all. So I'm going to have to lean to Manchester United, who have scored in 10 straight games. So, that side of their game is functioning okay. Højlund is back, and I think that he makes a difference as well. So, yeah, I just think that Manchester United, obviously, is their first return to this stadium since that 4-0 mauling back in the start of last season. So it's a long, long time since their last visit. A very memorable loss that day. I'm not saying they've improved massively since then, but for me, Brentford have regressed quite a lot. And I feel that United can go there and get a positive result. You could back them on the nose, or you could pair it with Man United and over 1.5 goals. Why do I want to do that? Well, 13 of 14 Brentford home games this season have gone over 1.5 goals. The only exception was their 1-0 defeat at home to the Arsenal. So, I think there's almost certain to be over 1.5 goals. And I can't back Brentford with the injuries and the form. It has to be Manchester United.
Okay. United and over 1.5 goals, 262. Follow that, Marco here.
Very good case made. This isn't a match where I've got a really strong view, but I've seen Man United's win against Liverpool in the FA Cup being described as potentially Erik ten Hag's kind of Sir Alex Ferguson, Mark Robins moment from when United beat Forest in the FA Cup when Fergie was on the brink and Robins, the academy product, came off the bench and scored the winning goal. Diallo doing it against Liverpool to come off the bench and score that dramatic winner. There has been a shift in the mood at Old Trafford, I think, since the takeover. Obviously, that win against Liverpool has helped too. I just wonder whether the international break kills a bit of that momentum. Results-wise, United have improved a lot in 2024, but I'm still unconvinced that this is a team that's turned a corner or is playing in a sustainable manner at the minute. I think they were still incredibly chaotic against Liverpool. We saw them probably at their best, kind of playing that kind of hard, fast, direct football, full of intensity. But I think it's easy to get up for an FA Cup tie trying to deny Liverpool a quad at Old Trafford rather than sort of coming straight off the bat in the international break, going away to Brentford, kind of a different mood, different sort of gear shift, really. So for me, the jury is still definitely out. And I think if you look at their Premier League campaign so far, of their 15 league wins, 12 of them have been by a 1-goal margin, which again suggests that they've been getting the rub of the green a little bit. I think on the balance of play, on the underlying numbers, and I think also with our eyes, we can probably see that United have overperformed in terms of their results and league output. So kind of happy to oppose them still at relatively short prices. I'm not doing it lightly because, as Adrian's outlined, Brentford have had huge amounts of injuries and issues with availability of key players all season. 3 wins in the last 18 Premier League games doesn't fill you with confidence. 14 defeats in that sequence, including away at Burnley last time out, doesn't make for great reading. However, I just think, we talked about Wolves being a bit of a thorn in some of the big boys' side. I think Brentford aren't far away from that themselves. You think back to the game at the Emirates, Arsenal required a late goal to beat them not so long ago. I thought they were excellent in the second half during their draw against Chelsea. I think was that the last home game. Put up a very decent fight when losing just 1-0 away at Man City recently. That's all in the last 6 weeks, those fixtures too. And I think, given the majority of the big boys a good workout, especially at the GTEC Stadium. Results haven't gone their way, but they have been difficult, not easily kind of swatted aside, apart from maybe when City came here. So yeah, I think they can, and I think they will score against Man United. They're very rarely nilled by Brentford. I did actually want to back goals in this game, but overs and BTTS came in at just 175. It's just a bit too short, really. So I'm going to back Brentford double chance and over 0.5 goals, which comes in at 1.8. So as long as Brentford don't lose, and as long as there's at least one goal in the game, we'll get paid. But yeah, I know United do tend to get the job done against the lesser lights under Ten Hag, but I just think it's always a struggle. It's rarely convincing. I was thinking recently about their trips to Luton, Sheffield United, Burnley. They lost at Forest. Even the 3-0 win against Everton was just nowhere near a 3-0 game. So, I keep opposing them, sometimes rightly, sometimes wrongly. But I think at some point these kind of games surely have to catch up on them. And I think maybe a rested Brentford after a bit of a break has the opportunity to sort of damage United immediately after the break. It just feels for me a bit of an awkward one for United, but totally take on board everything Adrian says. And as I say, it's not a massively strong view from my side.
Okay, yeah. So incidentally, Bet Builder product Brentford double chance and over 0.5 goals, 1.8 for Mark O'Hara. But we'll lock in Manchester United and over 1.5 goals, 262. Mark made the case a little bit less, Adrian, but didn't quite make his case strong enough. So I'm siding with you on that one.
Didn't have the bigger price. That's
well, that's a big factor as well, as you know, Mark. But you had the advantage of going second, so you didn't take it. So Adrian Clarke, Manchester United over 1.5 goals, 262. Now let's get to Super Sunday. And what a Super Sunday in store here. Liverpool versus Brighton is the 2:00 kickoff. Again, looking at that tight over round on the match odds. If you're watching on YouTube, Liverpool 141, Brighton 8.0. The draw is 6.0 here too. Both teams to score, yes, 161. Yes, no is 248. The Asian handicap line sees Brighton get a 1.5 goal head start at 1.9. And the total for this game, 3.5. And just look at that. So 194, only the slight favourite. Mark, we're expecting a lot of goals here, but how do you think this game's going to play out?
I'm not actually convinced it is going to be as high scoring as perhaps the market thinks it will. It's more probably than a hunch rather than anything statistical or analytical I can kind of give you, really. But, for Liverpool, we know that injuries have been a big issue in recent weeks and months. And Andy Robertson going off for Scotland in midweek is, just another kind of potential issue for them to contend with this weekend. They are expecting to have Darwin and Curtis Jones back, but still no Alisson. Keller has obviously been excellent in his absence, but many of their fit players will have been away on international duty all around the globe. So that disruption isn't ideal. Playing on Sunday does help that. But Brighton have been a thorn in Liverpool's side in recent years. Just one Liverpool win in the last 7 head-to-heads, 0 wins in the last 3 head-to-heads at Anfield. And the majority of those matches have been very fun to follow, with kind of Klopp and De Zerbi kind of gung-ho attitudes, kind of lending itself to quite a few exciting encounters, hence why the market is expecting a goal-heavy game. I'm just not as convinced it's going to be a high-scoring blockbuster as perhaps that suggests it will. To me, it feels perhaps more like a kind of get-the-job-done type fixture for Liverpool. We're now into the business end of the campaign, immediately after an international break. There are injuries to contend with. We know Anfield, their record is pretty flawless. Their second-half performance against Man City in their last home match was exceptional. If they hit those heights again, they win this game quite comfortably. But Brighton, difficult to know really where they're at. I think perhaps out of Europe, did beat Forest last time out, but they've not actually managed consecutive league wins since September. Their recent record against the top 10 is pretty poor, actually. Still no Matoma, no March. And their attacking output, this is perhaps something I wanted to bring up, actually, has actually suffered in recent months. And do you remember back when, well, you both will remember this quite well, but when Arsenal silenced them at the Emirates in mid-December, Brighton barely got a sniff that day. If you look back to sort of that period, they've played 13 Premier League games. They've scored 0 or 1 goal on 10 occasions in that 13-game spell. They've actually been blanked in altogether in 5 of those fixtures, 4 of which were away from home. And if you look at Brighton's away goal output since mid-December, it reads 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 5, 0. The 5 being Sheffield United, so the worst team we've probably seen in the Premier League for quite some time. So exclude them, 2 away goals in 6 games, one of which was a penalty. So they've got attacking issues to address. This isn't the swashbuckling Brighton side that started the campaign or we saw last season. I know João Pedro's due back as well, but they obviously have the potential to contribute here. But I thought the 2-12 on Liverpool winning and under 4.5 goals was fair enough, actually. You've got the range of correct scores: 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, 2-1, and 3-1 onside. I would be surprised if it escalated any further. As I say, just off the break, a midweek card to come, a busy period, injuries. I just think get the job done, move on to the next, rather than sort of a relentless racking up of goals and engaging in a high-scoring affair. Brighton's sort of lack of forward threat in recent weeks, perhaps being a key contributor to that.
Okay, yeah, Liverpool under 4.5 goals, 2.12, and some interesting numbers on Brighton's recent goal records. Adrian, I saw you nodding there when Mark mentioned the head-to-head record between Brighton and Liverpool. You were like you're proud of your partner there, Mark. Finally, it's coming to head-to-head and using it in his analysis as best he can.
Definitely, yeah. I always admire Mark O'Hare. I mean, he's a legend, isn't he? Legend of the game. But yeah, De Zerbi has a great record against Clarke. 2 wins and 2 draws against Liverpool. No defeats, hasn't lost. And wait for it, across those 4 games, Brighton have scored 10 goals against Liverpool. So, not saying it's their kryptonite, but in terms of a style, Brighton have a style that causes Liverpool problems, and that style is based around pressing. We know that, and basically every game between these two has been a bit of a press off, where Brighton will play out from the back and gift chances to Liverpool, and Liverpool will play out from the back and gift chances to Brighton, and they'll both take them. That's kind of how it's been. Mark's right about Brighton. They've leveled off. I think if you lose Mitoma, March, and Joao Pedro, it's going to affect you. Those are 3 real quality players. You forget how good Solly March was earlier on in the season. So, and last season in particular. So yeah. That said, I think Liverpool have to be sort of regarded as strong favourites here. They are 1.41 in the market for a reason. They've got a lot to play for here. And I kind of think that they're due a win against Brighton. This is a good time to play them, no doubt about that. So I will get on side with Liverpool, but at 1.41, obviously can't get too much interest in that. Both teams to score is interesting though, because even though Brighton have tailed off a little bit of late, and that's a good stat from Mark. That sort of 0-1, 0-0, 0-1, or whatever it was. It was that is a change, because they always used to score away from home, Brighton and Hove Albion. But I think because of the style, because of the way that they press, I think and the way that Liverpool give up chances, that I think Brighton are more than capable of scoring again at Anfield. And both teams to score, by the way, has landed in 13 of 15 Liverpool matches this season against the top 12. So when Liverpool play someone decent, they don't really keep that many clean sheets. So I can't sort of get on side with them winning to nil. So Liverpool and both teams to score does interest me. It's 2.52. Now Liverpool at 1.41. Both teams to score is 1.57. So that tells you that both those bets on their own are rated as not certs, but highly likely. Pair them together, and that jump to 2.52 seems pretty big to me. So that's why I'm on side. I still think that obviously without Alexander-Arnold, Jota, Alisson, maybe Nunez, maybe Canate this weekend, they're a little bit depleted, but I think they can still get. I think they can still get the job done. So Liverpool and both teams to score, but it's the Liverpool part that I'm less convinced about, because Brighton have such a good record against them.
Okay, yeah, Mark, I'm going to have to go with the bigger price here again. I think it's the better case. Liverpool, both teams to score, 2.52. I can't even look at them. I have to keep the head down here. Liverpool under 4.5 goals. If you want to go with Mark.
He's going to go on strike if you're not careful.
I know. I just know that for next week's show, I'm going to be putting in 5-1 shots for every bet. I'll have the winning deciding bet.
Yeah, and I'll be there going, great case, Mark. Let's go with it. Yeah. But speaking of big prices, there is agreement on a big price here in our final game, which is the big game of the weekend. Obviously, Manchester City versus Arsenal. Sunday, 4:30 live on Sky. Manchester City 196, so odds on favourites at home to Arsenal, who are 4.2. The draw is 3.95. Both teams to score, yes, 158. That should drift out a little bit towards kickoff. The Asian handicap line sees Arsenal get a half a goal head start at 198. The goal line here a little bit smaller or lower than the previous games here. 2.5. Overs 1.8. Adrian set this game up for us. It's rare we get such a a big game. I think I remember a Liverpool City game after an international break a couple of years ago. It's sort of hard to see where the teams are at when they've had almost 2 weeks off. There's a lot of injury news from the international break, so we're not 100% sure who's going to play on both sides. So what's your thoughts going into it?
Yeah, no, you just don't know who's going to be fit. Obviously, a few of City's players have gone off injured in games during the international break, but it's kind of normal for that to happen. I'm not saying that they're faking it, but sometimes they do make these miraculous recoveries. So I'm not buying into the fact that they're all going to be missing. Arsenal have got some injury concerns of their own. Will Martinelli be fit? Will Saka be fit? Gabriel was injured before the international break as well. So we don't know. I suspect most, if not all, will be available for the game. The break probably came at a bad time for Arsenal because obviously 8 straight wins. They were certainly in better form than Manchester City, but who knows who's going to come out of the break the stronger. All I can say from my end, and I've followed this fixture in great detail down the years, is that I've never felt more confident Arsenal can get a result. I think that in terms of quality, they've improved massively. The depth is there now. They haven't got too many players out injured, so providing those guys come back and are fit for this weekend, there's depth on the bench. There's big, strong players that have been added to the side as well, like Declan Rice and Kai Havertz. Even Kivior's come in at left back. He's a big unit. And City have overpowered Arsenal in the past. Arsenal have got this big match formula now with Rice and Jorginho sort of together as a 2. And then what they do is they have Ødegaard as the nominal 10, but they got Havertz as like a false 9. So out of possession, basically they're strikerless. They'll have Havertz and Ødegaard as the first line of defence. Then it's Rice and Jorginho in behind. But obviously the wingers contributing too. So I think that Arsenal can come into this game with more confidence than ever that they can get a result. But it's City away. City away. This unbeaten streak is well into the mid-20s. They've scored in so many successive home matches. That to win the game, Arsenal are going to have to score at least 2 goals. You'd assume that. It remains an incredibly hard place to go and get a result. Arsenal, to get anything out of it, even though they've got better, will have to rely on a bit of good fortune here and there. The odd Haaland miss, some great saves from David Raya. But I do believe in them. City aren't perfect. They've had 4 home draws already this season. And in 8 of 9 home games against the top 14 this season, City have conceded. So, 1 clean sheet at home against top 14 sides. So a little bit like I said with Liverpool, when they come up against decent teams, they do tend to concede. Is that enough to back Arsenal to win? I'm not going to quite be bold enough to do that, although I've got a little follow-up for you. But I do think the draw is on. 3.95 is a good price. City have drawn 3 out of 5 games against top 5 opposition this season. Arsenal have drawn 2 out of 4. Liverpool, by the way, drawn 3 out of 6. Spurs drawn 2 out of 5. A lot of these big games this season, for whatever reason, been fairly cagey and defensive orientated, and they've ended on level terms. And I think a draw is not a bad result for either team. The value in the win is massive, we know that, but not getting beaten is probably bigger. So I think Arsenal will try and stay in the game. They'll be very cautious in that first half, and then they might step on the gas in the second half and look for a winner. And if it gets to right towards the end, they might just take the point if they haven't got that goal. So, yeah, I believe in Arsenal. I believe they've got the tools to score. They've got the robustness to handle City. But, my first pick would be a draw. But if you want to get on side with Arsenal, the value is there, without a doubt. Draw or Arsenal. So it's basically Arsenal double chance. 1.97. So almost even money on anything but a Manchester City win. I was tempted to go with that, but I do think the draw at that price. I know that you're going to pick it anyway, Dan. So there you go.
It's bad enough getting pelters from Mark, Adrian. I don't need you joining in on it as well. But it's hard to disagree, Mark, in the sense of the draw. 70 minutes in and it's 1-1. That both sides aren't going to retreat just a little bit. We sort of saw that at Anfield. I know Liverpool were pushing a lot more than City, and City had a chance near the end too. But it does seem that it's still a long way to go that both teams will probably, if they had to, take a point out of this game.
I think so, yeah. Obviously, both coaches will go in with the mindset of trying to win the game, and they'll want to try and win the game, obviously. But yeah, I think the damage of losing a particular fixture like this at this stage of the season, with Liverpool obviously in a stronger position, is alarming. So they'll be doing their utmost to stay in the title race any way they possibly can. So the draw price of 3.95, I think, has to be a very, very strong consideration here. Arsenal, particularly in great form in 2024, but if you look at their away record against teams in 12th and above, just the 1 win, 2 draws, 3 defeats. One of those draws came at Anfield, creditable, obviously. But if you look at the matches between that breakaway top 3 of the 5 meetings between Liverpool, Arsenal, and City have ended all square. And yeah, I've had a bit of success back in the draw between the big teams in the big games this season. So when it's close to sort of 3-1, I just feel it's a bit too big to ignore because of the price of losing, if you like. And teams will, I'm not going to say settle for a point, because as you say, at Anfield between Liverpool and City, they were both trying to win, and they were both had great opportunities to score and win that game. But ultimately, they were quite happy to settle for a point rather than lose that game. And you look at City's numbers this season, they're actually winless against the top 5 this season, 3 draws and 2 defeats. And if we look at their home and away Premier League record against the top 11, 6 wins, 5 draws, 3 defeats. So draws are hitting at 36% in City's games against the sort of top half, top 11. Yet the price of a draw here implies there's just a 25% chance. Talking of the price, originally when I did look at these, I thought City at 1.95. That's interesting. It's the biggest price they've been at the Etihad this season, and they've actually only been 1.9 or bigger 5 times at home since 2018-19. They were 1.98 when they hosted Liverpool in April last season. The biggest price in that period have been 2.08 when hosting Chelsea in 2021. But yeah, the last 3 times that City have been at 1.95 or bigger, they've actually failed to win at the Etihad, which includes that game against Liverpool last season. So ordinarily, I'd be gobbling up that City price against pretty much everyone all the time. But as Adrian says, Arsenal have made incremental improvements, especially in the head-to-heads, I think, against City too. They've gained confidence year on year. And then that victory at the Emirates in the reverse game, will give them enormous belief going to the Etihad to believe that they can compete here. So, and I just think Arsenal, people might not realise this, but their underlying metrics have been a decent bit better than Man City's all season, which is quite impressive. They lead the way for expected points, XG, shots from the box, big chances. So they have to be you have to command respect here, and especially if we see Saka, Martinelli, and Gabriel all feature and be available, they're pretty much at full strength. And City, we know there's doubts over Walker and Stones now. We do expect Ederson and De Bruyne to play, but yeah, the Etihad fear factor is the one that kind of puts me off opposing City. The market still rates them as decent favourites between the two. But yeah, I just think the gap between the two teams has closed. And I think if you look at City's recent displays, I thought around this kind of time we would start to see Pep Guardiola, Man City, starting to sort of hit their straps, go on this surge towards the title. But I've not seen it as convincingly as perhaps previous years. I'm thinking home matches against Chelsea, Everton, Brentford. Well, they've made hard work of those fixtures. Even the derby against United at times, you felt it was coming, but it wasn't as convincing as perhaps you might have assumed it would be. So, I've not given a great amount of insight or analysis here. I've waffled on a little bit. I just think the draw at these kind of prices and these kind of high pressurized fixtures at this stage of the season has to be a consideration, especially at the 3.95. So yeah, I'm happy to back the draw.
One thing I did find out, or not find out, sort of reminded myself of when I was doing an analysis of the game, was how City have petered out in the second half of games this season, particularly against the immediate rivals. So you're talking about the top 5. If all those games against the top 5 teams had ended at half time, they'd scored 4 and conceded 1. So they're fast starters. They're a strong first half side. In the second half of those games, City have scored 1 goal and conceded 6. That the way that they petered out against Liverpool is a pattern. So look, if Arsenal are still in the game, come the second half, then they might start to fancy their chances if that pattern is to continue. But they have struggled really to put in 90-minute performances. The big asterisk here is that it's City at home, and they always seem to get the job done. But yeah, I'm with Mark. I don't think this City side are as as perfect or as near perfect as they have been before. So there's a sniff here for Arsenal. I'm quietly confident that they can get a result here.
And look, I know he said the draw. Ultimately, Arsenal will definitely take a draw, but look at Liverpool's run-in, and they'll probably beat Brighton. They'll be 3 points ahead of Arsenal. I think Arsenal have to go for it in that last 20 minutes, even if they don't.
I think last 20, if it's level,
they got to go for it.
Arsenal might push the button and go. Not too reckless, but they might be the one chasing the win here. So it's going to be a brilliant, fascinating game. I don't know if it'll be a brilliant watch because it might be cagey, but it's going to be a good standard, I'm sure.
Yeah, let's lock in 3.95 and enjoy watching the game. Nice fun one to not cheer on. So it's always tough back in the draw, isn't it? What do you want to happen if there's a penalty early on? We've talked about this before, but insights.matchbook.com, full recap of all the guys' picks, both in those 4 Premier League games and coming up in our European section, long shots, best bets, and Adrian, our EFL section, where you've got 2 picks.
Yeah, shall I start with Barnsley? Let's go for Barnsley against Cambridge United. Look, Cambridge United are in a bit of a pickle at the moment. They lost their manager, didn't they? Neil Harris, not so long ago. Got snapped up by Millwall. So they brought in Gary Monk, who was very much a left field appointment. He's been out of the game for a while and 0 new manager bounce, I think it's fair to say. Lost 4-0 at Reading, lost 6-0 at Lincoln in their last 2 away games. And now they've got Barnsley away, who are in playoff contention. Well, they're almost certain to land a playoff spot. And they've been exceptional against the lower lights in League One this season, Barnsley. 14 wins, 5 draws, just 1 defeat against bottom half sides. They've been kind of flat track bullies. It's against their immediate rivals where they've struggled a little bit, Barnsley. They come into this off of the back of 2 iffy home performances, actually. They drew at home to Cheltenham, got spanked in kind of a freak result against Lincoln. So I think there'll be a little bit of fire in their bellies. And I just sense that this could be lambs to the slaughter for Cambridge United again. Away to top 12 sides this season, 6 blanks. But worryingly, no wins, 1 draw, 9 defeats for Cambridge United. So they just don't tend to get anything out of these type of games. So I fancy Barnsley strongly, but if you pair it with over 2.5, it becomes a very backable price at 2.18. Why 2.5? Well, Barnsley home games, or Barnsley games actually, tend to be high scoring. 63% of them have gone over 2.5 this season. That's the 3rd highest of any team in League One. So it's been a relatively low scoring division this year for whatever reason, but Barnsley matches tend to be pretty entertaining. So yeah, for me, Barnsley, overwhelming home favourites here. Pair it with over 2.5 and it comes out at a nice backable price.
Okay, that's 2.18 Barnsley and over 2.5 goals. And if you'll forgive me, Adrian, we'll get to your other selection in a minute. I'll explain all when you see Mark's long shot pick there. But we'll go for Mark in the European section first of all. Take it away.
Yeah, Valencia versus Mallorca on Saturday. I think Valencia have gone a little bit under the radar in Spain. Last season, they were embroiled in a relegation battle. But Ruben Baraka, the former midfielder, came in towards the end of the campaign, steadied the ship, and he's really pushed them on this year, surprisingly, because his coaching credentials didn't suggest he was the kind of character who could come in and steer them to calmer waters, but he certainly has. They're comfortably inside the top half. They're only 6 points off European qualification with a game in hand, and look, they're not especially exciting. They're much more functional rather than flashy, but they are fairly effective. And their Mestalla record has been very solid all season. They've won 8 times, just the 2 defeats in 14 home league fixtures. None of Real Madrid, Barcelona, Athletic or Atletico Madrid have managed to win at Mestalla this season, and they've won 6 of 9 when hosting teams below them in the table. And if you look at the defensive record, it's astonishingly good, actually. Just 8 home goals conceded in La Liga this season. Only Real Madrid have shipped fewer, and they've conceded 7, and they're obviously top of the table. So impressive stuff from Valencia. So I'm quite surprised to see them offered at quite an appealing price here, around 2.18 to beat Mallorca on Saturday. But you can back Valencia minus a quarter at 182. It just means if the game ends in a draw, we only lose half of our stake, and that's, I think, quite a nice position to be in, considering Mallorca do almost all of their best work on the island. They're always quite easily opposed when playing away, as they have done this season when they've won just once in 14 away games this season. They've scored just 11 goals in those 14 away fixtures. They've lost all 7 trips to the top 8, failed to score in 6 of those. And they've actually only won once against the top 11, home or away, in La Liga this season. They are pretty physical, quite uncompromising. Javier Aguirre, the Mexican head coach, is in charge there. In Larin and Makiri up front, they're very sort of physical, in your face. But I think Valencia do have the sort of physicality themselves, that are quite capable of dealing with that kind of threat. But as I say, I've just taken a little bit of insurance out by taking the -quarter start there, which guards against the draw, where we only would lose half our stake if it does end all square. Be very surprised if Mallorca win this game. Valencia, I think, deserve to be stronger favourites than they currently are. I make them closer to evens, if not a touch of odds on. So a quarter goal start at 182 does stand out.
Okay, Valencia -quarter goal 182. So Adrian, take it away. There's agreement, and Mark wants to get in on a bit of the CFL action here. So if you want to lead in, and then Mark can take over for the long shots.
Yeah, I won't.
I was first.
I won't steal all the stats, I promise. Let's Wimbledon, AFC Wimbledon against Harrogate Town. You know, not a glamour clash, but
mid-table.
It did stand out to me. It really did. But not basically the angle here is that Harrogate are very good away from home. Now you might remember they did lose 9-2 at Mansfield not that long ago, which was an astonishing result because at the time Harrogate had the best away record in League Two. Since then, they've battened down the hatches, I think it's fair to say. 3 goalless draws and a 1-1 draw. So they've basically just made sure that they're nice and solid on the road. My pick would be, this is my second EFL pick, is Harrogate +1 goal at Wimbledon. They've lost 5 of 20 away games this season. You know, they just don't get beat very often. It's an astonishing record, really. And this bet would lose in just 2 of Harrogate's 20 away games in League Two this season. So Harrogate +1 is very, very attractive. Wimbledon aren't in great form. They've sort of at home lately. I think the recent home record is 1-2, drawn 2, lost 2. It's been a little bit patchy. And they're sort of clinging on, or they're trying to cling on for a playoff spot at the minute. I think they're easy to oppose here. I think that the odds are slightly too short on the Dons, and Harrogate, I think, are a very, very good price. So yeah, Harrogate +1 goal, 1.89. I just think they're more than capable of drawing or winning the game, let alone losing by 2. So yeah, this would be one of my stronger feels for this weekend.
Okay, yeah, Mark, you want to add to that in your long shots?
Yeah, Harrogate, a huge price. The 6.2 to win away at Wimbledon. They are a confusing, quite funny side. If you look at all the sort of numbers in League Two, I find them very hard to second guess. And you know, last weekend they smashed up Bradford in the derby, and previously they'd gone to Barrow and Wrexham and squeezed out sort of goalless draws. But as Adrian says, it was only 6 weeks ago they got done 9-2 at Mansfield. So they are clearly capable. Can be a little bit erratic at times, but they are just incredible data defiers in League Two. So I've got them bottom on away expected points with the second worst XG ratio away from home. However, only Mansfield, who are top of the table, have a better points record playing away from home compared to everyone else. It's incredible. Just the 5 defeats, 8 wins, 7 draws, 3 defeats and 11 trips to the top half as well. It's a real head scratcher, but because of those poor underlying metrics, you're getting offered some wild prices on Harrogate, such as the 6.2 to win away at Wimbledon on Good Friday, which is going to be my long shot. The market is effectively saying, Burnley were a shorter price to win at West Ham. Nottingham Forest were a shorter price to win at Aston Villa. Now, I would rather support Harrogate to win at Wimbledon over those two every day of the week, to be honest. And Wimbledon are no mugs, but they lost their star striker, Al-Hamidi, in January to Ipswich. They've recovered reasonably well since, but they're no better than sort of mid-table fodder right now in terms of their output. So Harrogate are more than capable of going there and doing a job and getting a result. But just on the XG stuff, which is driving these prices, just a bit too much for me, really. I think it's common knowledge, really, but XG data and sort of high-level analytics does kind of lose its strength the lower down the pyramid you get. And I think especially in League Two, when you've got two sort of mid-table sides, I just think it can be a little bit OTT, really, and there's opportunity there to oppose the data, and I think this is a great one in terms of backing Harrogate. So yeah, completely agree with Adrian in terms of the +1, but I think as a long shot, the 6.2 can't be missed.
Lovely angle, guys. I have to say, I really like that angle. Adrian, Leicester City season is starting to unravel a little bit. Is there a danger they can finish outside the top two, which would be absolutely insane if you said that 3 months ago, 2 months ago, maybe 6 weeks ago? But it's slowly drifting away from them, I think.
It is. Look, I live in the area, and Leicester fans are worried. I've got some mates that have been saying, "I told you, I keep telling you, we've hit the wall, and it's not looking good." And I think this sort of tailspin they're in needs to stop quickly, otherwise, because Leeds and Ipswich are still flying. So it's becoming a high pressure situation. It'd be catastrophic for Leicester City not to finish top two after the campaign they've had. They've been just brilliant, but across the last 5 games, not brilliant at all. They've played well and lost. They've had some frustrating games, but they've also won and not played that well, like they did at Sunderland. So basically, they come into a game on Good Friday. I'm going to the game, Bristol City against Leicester City. It's the early kickoff in the Championship on Good Friday, and I just think that this is a game where you can oppose Leicester City because of the pressure. It's intense. It really is, and they've not handled that pressure very well in recent weeks. The game that they won at Sunderland, they were clinging on by their fingertips, seriously, against a Sunderland side that really struggled to create chances and to score goals. They went into reverse Leicester once they got the lead. So that was alarming for me, maybe more alarming than if they'd have lost. So look, they've had a break. They probably needed it. But who knows how they're going to come out of it. And I just think that Bristol City at home are too long. So yeah, for my long shot, I'm going to go with Bristol City and over 1.5 goals at a nice juicy price of 6.8. Bristol City have beaten Southampton at home. So if you can beat Southampton at home, you can beat out of sorts Leicester at home. They've also won against Hull, Coventry, Middlesbrough and Sunderland at Aston Gate. There'll be a big crowd there, no doubt. And when I have seen them in the flesh, they're quite bold. They're quite adventurous. They'll take it to Leicester. And they've only conceded. This is interesting. They've conceded 1 or none. Bristol City at home in 14 matches so far this season. That's a high proportion. So they're not the sort of side that cave in and get mullered at the other end of the pitch. So I think they can be competitive here. I think that they can put a sort of wobbling Leicester under a little bit of pressure. I think my theory here is that Leicester were cruising to such an extent that basically they just started freewheeling and they lost their edge because they didn't have to have an edge. So they were so far in front. And once you lose that edge, it's not easy to get it back. They might get it back. They might get it back in this game, but it's no guarantee. So I couldn't get on side with Leicester here. I just think it's one where you can oppose the Foxes. Yeah, Bristol City and over 1.5, 6.8. Good price on the home team.
Yeah, big price. And Harrogate is a big price at 6.2 as well. The double, incidentally, on the match bet exchange would give you around over 40 to 1. So maybe a small little saver on that. I don't know. I think they're as good as 2 cases as you made in the long shot section, guys. So the international break has done good. We will see. Time reveals all, Mark. And if you want one bet on the card all week, it's coming Spurs versus Luton, which might surprise a few people. So make a case here because it's the bet builder again, and you're bringing sort of 2 different angles into it.
Yeah, this is one of my favourite plays in the Premier League this season. Not the actual bets I'm going to promote, but the sort of combination of the market, really, which is both teams to score and both teams to receive over 9.5 booking points, which comes in at a really lovely 2.15. When BTTS is trading around 167, just to get that leap to 215 by including both teams to be booked is very appealing. Now, we've done both of these 2 teams to death, really, in terms of their goal-related numbers already this season. But just for the record, Spurs have scored in 27 of 28 under Postecoglou in the Premier League. They've only kept 6 clean sheets. 16 of the last 19 have seen BTTS pay out. 12 of their 14 home fixtures have also seen BTTS reward backers as well. As for Luton, they've scored in 25 of 29 since promotion. They've only failed to score once since October's international break, and they've scored in 4 of 5 trips to the top half as well, but just the 2 clean sheets all season. They actually have the highest BTTS hit rate in the division with 23 of 29. Seeing both sides oblige, including 11 of 14 away. So the goals numbers are very, very strong for both sides. Cards-wise as well, Spurs have been booked in 89% of games. They've also drawn a card from all bar one of their opponents. Luton have been booked in 86% of games, and only 2 of their opponents escaped a booking. Jared Gillette is the referee. He's averaging 471 cards this season, so I'd expect a reasonable spread here of at least 3 cards, and hopefully both teams to collect 1 each, and boost that BTTS price up from 167 to 215, which is very attractive. And just as an alternative, really, I think Spurs are very short for this game. You can get Luton with a +2.25 goal start at a backable price, which just feels a bit of a disservice to the Hatters. So, but I'll keep it simple. I think Luton can score at Spurs. I think both teams could oblige, and both teams to get carded is the bet.
Okay, yeah, that's 2.15, as Marcus said. That's combining both teams to score and both teams to pick up essentially 1 booking each. Adrian, bet builders, you've had a time to process them, come up with different angles, and I love this three-way bet builder.
Yeah. We've had too much time on our hands, haven't we? We're coming up with a few different methods of backing things, and look, it's all part of the fun, isn't it? Look, I couldn't not include this match in today's show because it's a matchup between the two sort of best attacks, or 2 of the best attacks, and 2 of the absolute worst defences in League Two. It's Swindon at home to Notts County. Look, the numbers are extraordinary, really. Notts County games average 3.85 goals. Swindon matches average 3.46 goals. They're the top 2 in the division in terms of goals. Both teams to scorers landed in 72% of both their matches. Again, they're in the top 2 in League Two. And over 2.5 goals has landed in 74% of Notts County games, in 72% of Swindon games. And again, surprise, surprise, they're in the top 2. So, if you're looking for goals, these are the sides to follow. Just 6 clean sheets apiece across 39 matches, or a combined 78. You've got to expect goals here. Even more stats. Notts County have scored 61 open play goals, the most. Swindon 54, even though they're right at the bottom of the table. Swindon, they've scored the 3rd most goals from open play. Notts County conceded the most, 74, and Swindon have conceded 70, which is the 4th most. So look, you've got to go goals here. So what I've done, I've gone both teams to score. I've gone over 2.5 goals. It comes out too short. It's still about 1.5 for that, which maybe is no surprise given the numbers I've just said. If you then chuck in each team getting 3 or more corners, so over 2.5 corners, it takes it to even money, 2.0. And for me, 2 of the most attack-minded sides in the country, certainly in League Two. I'm expecting them to pile the pressure onto one another. I don't have corner stats available, but given the amount of time they spend, scoring goals, that I'm confident that they can both rack up at least 3 corners in the game, which makes this very, very backable. So yeah, hopefully, it's a fun bet builder to follow.
Very fun, yeah. Both teams to score over 2.5 goals, and each team to get 3 corners or more. Even money right now in the Matchable Betting Exchange using the Bet Builder product if you are available, or if you have an account in the UK. My thanks to Mark and Adrian. Fun one to be back. It is good to be back, and it's going to be non-stop right until the end of the season. Quick little break and then on to Euro 2024. And we know those groups now, so we can get excited. But before we go, insights.matchbook.com, full recap of all the guys' picks. And do hit that like button and subscribe completely for free to our YouTube channel if you're listening on the podcast. Other than that, we will chat to you next week. Enjoy the weekend's football. Let's hope for a really good weekend, but particularly Super Sunday. And we will chat to you next week. Bye-bye.